Hello watch enthusiasts. Now I'm very often asked about titanium watches and about the various options in this field on the market, because it's true to say that titanium offers some features which simply aren't available from steel, notably the complete resistance to magnetism, both from the watch and towards the watch, as well as the fact that titanium is extremely light, just as strong if not stronger than steel in certain cases, and can be made to be just as hard or even harder than steel. And so as a result, titanium is a very favourable material to produce sports watches, and in some cases dress watches from. However, on the market there are often situations where there aren't very many options for affordable prices, and so in this video I'd like to address the market of affordable or indeed well-priced and good value titanium timepieces. However, before I begin the video, I would as always like to encourage you all to join the Watch Guys, which is my group on Snups, the social media platform for sharing pictures of your collections and interests, and where you can join the Watch Guys, which is of course my group, where you can ask me and the other enthusiasts any questions you happen to have, and I'll do my utmost to reply to you personally about these matters. And of course, for today's featured picture, we have this fantastic shot by Giant Racer of his fantastic Speedmaster Broad Arrow. A watch which combines the movement and the case of the professional with that classically designed style with those twisted lugs and indeed the general aesthetic of the watch. However, it instead of having the normal tachymeter and hands, as well as the normal Omega logo, which is now the vintage style logo, it has watch characteristics of the original CK2915 Speedmaster from 1957, with that brushed tachymeter on the bezel, as well as those broad arrow hands, which just look absolutely tremendous and really bring out the best in this watch. And so if you'd like to join the group, then do follow the link down below to join. Now the first watch I'd like to talk about is a remarkable watch for the price, and this is the Steinhart Ocean Titanium 500 GMT Premium. And that may be a heck of a mouthful as far as names go, but I think this might represent one of the best value, at reasonably priced titanium watches on the market. And I myself owned the non-GMT version of this watch, the Ocean Titanium 500 Premium, and I had various problems with the movement of that watch, but since then Steinhart have moved away from using Soprod A10 movements to what this watch has, which is an ETA 2893-2, which I think was a very good choice because it means there's a very reliable and very well proven movement in this watch, which means there won't be any of the problems that were seen with the older movement. And the watch is made out of titanium, as the name would suggest, and it's this satin finish where it's bead blasted and brushed to give a very soft sort of aesthetic, but whilst keeping a dark and very typically non-steel type of colouring to the case. In terms of sizing, this watch sits at 42mm in diameter, with the bezel overhanging the case ever so slightly, and with a 50mm lug-to-lug distance, which is not inconsiderable, but certainly considering the amount of watch you're getting, even I with smaller wrists would overlook the size of this watch just for the sheer value it offers. And the watch itself is still only 13mm thick, which remains a very acceptable thickness for a watch which is fundamentally a 500-metre dive watch. And the watch features a unidirectional rotating bezel with this fantastic ceramic bezel insert. And the whole of the bezel in terms of the insert, as well as the dial with the hands, the GMT hand, as well as the dial indices itself are loomed, giving a really fantastic effect at night, which is extremely useful for reading this watch, especially being a professional dive watch. And whilst the case of this watch remains the same as the non-GMT version, this version now features a bicolour ceramic bezel insert, which, as I've said, is fully loomed with this 2 to 22 hours bezel insert, which allows you that day and night indication, which is typical of a Rolex GMT Master. But here you have this style of mix, if you will, between a style of GMT watch and a dive watch, because it still remains a unidirectional bezel, which has the primary purpose of allowing you to time a dive. And it is impressive to be able to see a bicolour bezel like this, because it's very difficult to make these twin-colour styles of ceramic bezel inserts, and Steinhart have done an extremely good job of combining blue with black in that Batman style. Additionally, the GMT hand on the dial, which sits below the other hands, is again very well matched in colour, which allows you to very quickly pick that out in terms of keeping a second or even a third time zone. And the hands themselves are coated with BGW9 loom, as I've said, which allows the watch to be very highly legible. And so I find it remarkable that Steinhart are able to offer this watch with the titanium case, the matching titanium bracelet, which is all solid by the way, as well as that bicolour ceramic bezel insert, and a very, very nicely decorated movement, being the ETA 2893-2, which has a fantastic personalised or customised rotor by Steinhart, with that decoration that you see on the bridges and plates of the movement. And whilst this is very much an off-the-shelf movement, they really have put an effort into amalgamating it with this watch, and especially giving the view of it through that exhibition caseback, which is a nice touch, especially for a 500-metre dive watch. And this watch is offered for the price of €660, which is about £590, which is really remarkable, bearing in mind that Christopher Ward, for example, have risen the price of their titanium models to significantly more than this watch, over £300 more, without the GMT function. So I think it really is a brilliant timepiece, this, as far as offering an automatic GMT dive watch in titanium. Now, the second watch on this list is a piece which is very much the descendant of one of Seiko's most successful lines, the Presage line. And the Presage line has very much been seen as that step, that intermediate stage between Seiko and Grand Seiko, which is of course a separate entity now. And this is the Seiko Presage SARX055, or the SARX055. And it's a full titanium dress watch, very much in the line of the Snowflake spring drive from Grand Seiko. And this watch measures 40.8mm in diameter by 11mm thick, making it a very versatile size and very usable size for the vast majority of users and wearers. And it is extremely well built, with polished aspects as well as various brushed sections, all coated with Seiko's proprietary dye shield coating, which makes it more scratch resistant and more resistant to corrosion. And it's remarkable to say that Seiko have been able to make a titanium watch of this type for this price, because very often these watches with polished surfaces are very difficult to do in titanium due to various properties of the metal itself. And so as a result, a lot of brands shy away from polished surfaces in favour of brushed or bead blasted finishes. So it's remarkable to see Seiko do this at the price range of this watch, which is just under £1,000. And I can't give a specific price because it is a JDM model, so a Japanese domestic market version. So really one has to buy it from a reseller, which is something to be debated, but nonetheless allows you access to a watch which otherwise wouldn't be available. Of course, the bracelet of the watch is also solid titanium, with these 5 separate sections, which allow it to have a very complex form on the wrist, and actually does resemble a lot of Grand Seiko pieces. And of course there is the dial, which has this crisscrossed pattern of metallic forms, which do resemble the sort of patterns of snowflakes. And so as a result it has been coined as the baby snowflake by comparison to the Grand Seiko version. And I can certainly see that, but bearing in mind it's about a sixth of the price, it's quite remarkable to be able to see this watch on the market. And the hands are also very nicely polished, with matching polished and faceted indices, which bring out a very classically correct and very simple and minimalistic aspect to this dress watch. Additionally, it's clear to see that Seiko have used a lot of care with this watch to create the piece which watch collectors really want. And so as a result, gone is the Seiko Hardlex in favour of a sapphire crystal with an excellent quality coating to make it very much invisible on top of that dial, which is all the better bearing in mind the fact that the dial is really the centrepiece of this watch. And of course it also has a signed crown and the necessary detailing that we would expect from a higher range Seiko. Similarly, the movement is the 6R15, which is a piece which doesn't beat at the full high beat rates of 28,800 beats per hour, or even the higher beat above that of 36,000, but rather beats at 21,600 or 3 Hz. And for some that makes it stutter a bit on the dial, and of course is a stark contrast to the completely smooth run of the second hand on the Grand Seiko spring drive. However, this does mean you still get a 50-hour power reserve, which is frankly unheard of for this sort of price range from any other movement, and so as a result I think that's a very reasonable downside to a movement which otherwise offers a lot of good, making this watch a remarkable choice as far as dress watches go for an affordable and well-built titanium watch. The third watch in this video is the Stowa Flieger TESTAF T01. And this is a remarkable pilot's watch, really, from the brand, and was one of the brands that co-developed the TESTAF set of parameters, I suppose, and indeed specifications for a professional pilot's watch. And these go far beyond what one would normally expect, and it's remarkable that Stowa are able to offer a watch with these specifications for this price. And the watch is a 44mm diameter timepiece with a 12.9mm thickness. It also, as per the regulations of this TESTAF setup, has a captive bezel which is bidirectional, with this countdown style on it. Additionally, this watch is a 200-metre water-resistant watch, so it can resist a significant amount of water, and is able to resist variation in pressure as well. And it's even set up in a way so that it can actually resist being immersed in jet fuel, which is something which plays havoc with seals normally, but this watch has to be able to survive. And this dictates some of the thickness of the watch as well, bearing in mind that it has to have that thickened and easily gripped bezel, as well as a dial which is extremely clean. As you can see, Stowa and indeed the TESTAF logo are in dark grey, so they're not easily a distraction from the main objective of the dial, which is to be a purely visible pilot's watch. Equally, its thickness is added to by the fact that it has to have an extra resistant crystal, which is thicker than a usual crystal would be, in order to resist shocks. And then furthermore, its very nature as a titanium timepiece is dictated by the specifications of this test, because this watch has to have no effect on avionics due to its magnetism, so it mustn't affect the mechanical compass inside the plane itself through it being steel. And this would, for example, be a problem with the cases used by Damasco, for instance, because these cases are highly magnetic because of their nature as that particular form of steel, whereas this had to be titanium to have no effect in terms of magnetism upon surrounding metallic objects. In addition to this, the watch is of course anti-magnetic itself, and provides this tremendous legibility with an extremely clean dial. And as you can see, the hands follow those very traditional forms for a Flieger watch, but are fully loomed without any rim. And additionally, the whole of the second hand's length is loomed in white, as well as having no counterbalance to avoid having any effect in terms of reading it wrong. The bezel is also fully graduated and extremely easy to read, and of course is loomed with that triangle at 12 o'clock. And in many ways this watch can be seen as sort of an extended version of the concept of, for example, a Sinn 104, with its clean three-hand design, but of course now without the date or the day, and with that countdown bezel. And the design of the case may come across as very basic and Spartan to start off with, but in truth it's very much dictated by the specification once more, due to the fact that it mustn't be reflective. And I feel that this is quite remarkable for a watch of this price, because you really are getting a very resistant timepiece, which is designed to be used and worn for a very reasonable price of €1,470, which, bearing in mind the fact that this watch has to deal with these specifications, is remarkable. And furthermore, the resistance of the watch is only further added to by the fact that it has one of these very thick rubber straps on it with a deployant clasp. And this is held to the case not by spring bars, but rather by screws through the lugs themselves, to again further reduce the danger of losing the watch from your wrist. And there are still hints towards the Flieger past, with, for example, that onion-style crown being a clear reference to the earlier stages of these watches, in, for example, early pilot's watches of the 30s and 40s. But I feel overall this watch is truly a very modern take on a very classic style. And through the exhibition caseback, one can see the ETA 2824 inside the watch, which is chronometer certified, in order to make this watch a very reliable wrist instrument for a pilot or indeed any sort of navigator who needs a watch which is clearly legible and easy to use. And the remarkable thing about the price of this watch is that the nearest watch with the TESTAF certification is from Sinn, and that watch comes in at over £3,000, which seems remarkable in terms of the price difference, bearing in mind internally, though they offer certain technologies above this watch, nonetheless the watches do have to adhere to the same specifications, and this watch does trump it in terms of price very clearly, making this watch a very interesting option for a buyer who's into these professional pilot's watches. The penultimate watch in this video is none other than the Sinn T2, which is a legendary watch in terms of titanium dive watches, and is very much the pinnacle of Sinn's dive watch technology. If one excludes, of course, the UX, but in terms of mechanical dive watches, this represents the pinnacle of what they can do. And this features a 41mm by 13mm titanium case, which is a high-strength titanium used by Sinn, which offers greater resistance to the elements in terms of hardness than normal grades of titanium. Additionally, it is one of these watches with an enormous water resistance of 2,000 meters. And bearing in mind the fact this has modern gaskets and seals, it doesn't need a helium escape valve to be able to operate with mixed gases, and indeed in a helium-enriched environment, which is something impressive about this watch, and something which does make it a viable dive watch, though of course 2,000 meters is far beyond the limits of human survival at depth. And this watch resistance is made even more impressive by the fact that this watch is only 13mm thick, which means it's a remarkably reasonably proportioned watch, bearing in mind that immense water resistance, and is far from the thickness of, for example, a Rolex Deep Sea, which is simply, about 5mm thicker than this watch, which is remarkably large in terms of affecting the use of the watch and comfort on the wrist. And of course this watch is light due to its titanium construction. It also features Sinn's Eisensatzmesser style of setup, whereby it's resistant to temperatures from minus 45 degrees Celsius to plus 80 degrees, which of course is beyond human survival limits in terms of the plus 80, and of course you wouldn't have 80-degree water, but nonetheless shows the resistance of this watch. And this is combined with their AR dehumidifying technology, where a copper sulfate capsule, which turns blue in the side of the case when exposed to water, absorbs moisture inside the case to be able to sustain the movement for as long as possible, whilst it's filled with argon, an inert gas, instead of air, to reduce the effects of oxidation. And of course the design of this watch is truly unique. There's nothing else that looks like it on the market, with these soft edges but easily gripped bezel, which is a captive bezel, so you have screws on the sides of the bezel that unscrew to allow the bezel to simply lift off the case, underneath which it has several ball bearings on springs, which allow it to pop between the 120 clicks very easily. And of course titanium here serves the fantastic purpose of being corrosion resistant, as due to its oxide coating, it doesn't react really at all in any way like rust, for example, on steel would normally occur. As well as that, the legibility of this watch is unparalleled, with this broad arrow minute hand, an extremely clear matte black painted dial, with these luminescent indices which glow blue. And so of course you have this fantastically legible piece where you really can't mistake the hour hand for the minute hand. And with both the blue and black dial versions coming in at between £2,295 and £2,615, you are getting a watch which is remarkably good value in terms of offering a piece which offers really unrivaled resistance to the elements, and indeed features that simply aren't seen from other brands, for a price which frankly is less than Omega Seamaster. And the Seamaster, though, is a tremendous watch, and this isn't really appealing to the same market, it's undeniable that in terms of technical specifications, even with an off-the-shelf movement like the Sopron A10, which this watch has, which is still modified by Sinn, you are getting a heck of a lot of watch for your money, and a lot of technology and innovation too. Now, the Tudor Pelagos is a watch which certainly seems like an obvious choice for the last watch on this list, and certainly for the luxury section of this video, I was very tempted to go for a Grand Seiko. But I think in terms of what this Tudor offers, it can't really be rivaled in a titanium case, because this is a beautifully made watch with all of the elegance of the Submariner's design, but taken to a modern style of production, and with all the features one would expect from a modern timepiece. And so this watch features a 42mm by 14.3mm titanium, grade 5 titanium rather, brushed case, with fantastic bevels along the edges, and pointed crown guards like early 1960s Rolex Submariners. And this watch is very much steeped in history as well as being a professional 500-metre diver, because of course the blue dial is a reference to the blue Tudor Submariners issued to the French Navy, as well as the left-handed version also being a reference to left-handed watches of that time, as well as having the twin-coloured date with red and black being on the print. And the design of this watch seems very conservative with the flat sides and the curved lugs like that, but certainly I think this is a fantastic take on the Submariner form, with a matte black, matte blue, or indeed cream-coloured lume dial, with this fantastic rehort around the inside of the dial, with these snowflake hands, which are painted blue in their centre as well to detract attention from that area. Furthermore, this watch does feature the MT5612 calibre from Tudor, which allows this watch to have a proper in-house 26 dual movement, which is no glamorous piece with a very simple design in terms of its decoration, but does have a 70-hour power reserve and is a proper chronometer, which is excellent to see in a watch like this. And in addition to that, you do have a helium escape valve, and one of the best bezels in the business, which is a 60-click bezel with really no bounce back, and a larger click at 12 o'clock for it to seat properly in its position. And in addition to that, of course, one has a fully loomed dial as well as bezel, so you have a fantastic BGW9 coming from those indices, and indeed the hands and all the markings on that ceramic matte blue or matte black bezel. And I feel this gives this watch a far more sedate and professional look than it perhaps would have had otherwise. And then there is this watch's bracelet, which is a fantastic fully brushed titanium bracelet to match the watch, with one of the best clasps, though in steel rather than titanium due to the scratch resistance, at its centre. And this allows several points of adjustment, in addition to a sprung section, where you can you can allow the clasp to expand or contract to your wrist. As well as that, you do also get a dive extension, although for most, that sprung section will probably accommodate most dive suits, whilst keeping the watch tightly on the wrist. And they do also include in the box, which is something I appreciate, because often one gets one or the other, whereas here you get both. A very nicely made rubber strap, which also fits with the end links of the bracelet, which has a simple tang and buckle, with a wetsuit or indeed a dry suit extension in addition to that. And the whole watch as a unit comes at the price of £3,160, which is a rise of, I think, about £110 over last year, but this is to be expected with annual rises in prices. But nonetheless, you're getting a heck of a lot of watch, and of course you are getting that Hans Wilsdorf Foundation grounding of the Rolex Group, allowing this watch to be a really high-quality piece, despite not having the name of Rolex, certainly having the technology. And so I'll conclude this video here, and I thank you very much for watching, and do leave your comments down below as to what you thought of this video and my choices, and if you think there were any options I missed out. And of course, since it is New Year's Eve today, I would like to wish you all a very happy New Year tomorrow, as of course that doesn't fit with my schedule, so in terms of today I offer you my wishes for a very happy New Year. So if you did enjoy the video, then please do like, share and subscribe to help the channel, and to be able to enjoy more content here in future. So thank you very much for watching. This is Arm on the Watch Guy, over and out.